Scene Daddy Interviews.
Welcome everyone to Scene Daddy Interviews. My name is Ian and I am very excited because today online we have Steve from Wolves at the Gate. Steve, man, how are you doing?
I am doing very well. Thanks for asking.
No problem. I think I start every interview off just like that, but I don't think it counts as a catchphrase.
No, that's a fair question to ask because that probably sets the tone for the whole interview. Because if I said, "Dude, I'm just doing terrible," people would know what's going to happen in the next hour or so.
Yeah, we're just going to have a straight up depressing talk for an hour. No, I totally get it. Maybe we'll still lead there. Who knows? But
yeah.
I do right away. I do want to congratulate you on Eclipse. Really, really fantastic, man.
Hey, thanks, man.
Absolutely. Now, we will talk a lot more about that as we go on. But first, before we get started, the last time you were on a previous show of mine, that was a long, long time ago. That was I think it was right before Types and Shadows officially came out.
Right.
And I remember at that time, you had also mentioned that a little bit before that, you had also had twins, correct?
Yeah, they probably were like just born, or it'd been like a week since they were born.
Yeah, it was pretty insane. So I got to ask, how has balancing that whole family dynamic worked since then?
Well, there was a definite imbalance of where my time was spent,
Sure,
as it was previously, but it's been awesome.
Nice.
I love being a dad, and I have a boy and a girl, and they're just a lot of fun. My wife's awesome. She's a hard worker, and she totally supports what we do too. So, all along the goal was just focus on surviving, the first year of having twins. And after the first year, we're like, all right, we don't constantly feel like we're drowning and sleep deprived all at once. And yeah, that afforded me, some more time, started working on the songs. I mean, lots of late nights.
Yes.
All of these songs, they were birthed, in the very wee hours of the night and the morning.
So that's why there's been a tone change. I get it. Now I totally get it. So you went through in 2017. So Types and Shadows came out at the end of 2016, around that time.
Right.
But you still toured pretty significantly in 2017, right?
Yeah, we did a couple of month-long tours, and I honestly didn't think we would, but the opportunities came up, and my wife and I just talked about it, and we made it work, just because we definitely didn't want to go, tell people, oh, we're going to take a hiatus, or we just didn't want to do any of that stuff. And so we wanted to just show people we're still alive, still active, but not make like this big statement of, oh, Steve had twins. And so it's like, dude, everybody has stuff that happens in life. And,
Sure.
It worked out well for us. We kind of figured out ways just to keep in touch with our fan base and get out there, play some shows, but now we're going to try and cycle back into a little bit more of normal, Wolves at the Gate life, which is exciting.
Yeah. You kind of, if I'm not mistaken, you toured in 2017, but then there was a pretty good amount of time off in 2018, where I'm assuming that's where the writing process for Eclipse took place, right?
Yeah, we did one more tour in the spring of 2018, which was basically at the tail end of like the writing cycle. And really, we used that tour as an opportunity to get back out there, play shows, kind of get our chops back, and also we used that whole tour to work on all the songs. And so it was pretty crazy. We'd go play our set and pack up our gear, and then I'd go back to the van and would track vocals.
Oh, wow.
To start putting down demo ideas, and I'd show it to Abishai, our drummer, and then I'd like track scratch ideas for Nick and be like, all right, dude, give this a shot. And so people would just hear us just rip roaring, they'd walk by and, people were like laughing and shaking the van and stuff like that, because they're just like, what are you guys doing in there?
Right.
But we were trying to put the finishing touches on the songs and getting it ready because we knew we were going to record the record in that summer. So
Wow. Wow, that's really impressive. Well, before we move on to some of the newer stuff, I did want to mention one other thing that you had said about when you had twins that I think it was the whole having kids in the first place, but you had mentioned how much it meant to you that at some point they were going to be able to hear your music. So have you actually played any music? Because they're still really young, but have you
oh
played
yeah,
any, Wolves at the Gate music for them?
well, yeah, definitely. In more ways than one, right now I'm in just kind of like my home studio, which is basically like the whole basement
Mhm.
of our house. Um, and a lot of times, when my wife like needed to step out or just give her a break, I'd watch the kids and ever since they were just like in their little like cribs, they'd be down here with me and I'd be writing music, playing guitar.
Ah.
And so, it was just like, work on some music, turn, rock the cribs, make sure everything's still good, give them some milk, and
Sure.
yeah, the downstairs there's a lot more kids' toys down here than normally in my studio, but that way like they can always be around, and so they've been around it ever since as far as they could know.
Oh, that's
So
pretty cool.
yeah.
Do you have any like not plans, but do you have any desires for them to really get into music? Like is that something that you're going to start with them really early?
Well, I have like, some like cheap throwaway guitars that I've just told them it's yours,
There you go.
bang on it, do whatever you want to do. And really my goal is more so I just want to give my kids the opportunity to just see a lot of different stuff and try a bunch of things. And if it clicks and it's rad. And
Right.
honestly, I don't have any like desire for it to be one thing in particular. I just want them to find, stuff they're really good at and help them, do that, and encourage that. So
Yeah. No, it makes total sense. All right. Well, I had to check on that for sure. That's almost like a full circle thing. So now,
yeah.
the next Wolves at the Gate album, we'll be talking about when they're teenagers and how they hate you and everything. So yeah, totally makes sense. They're playing pop music, no metalcore for them, no
Uh,
post-hardcore, just completely opposite. So we'll go on. We'll talk a little bit about Eclipse and everything that's going on. So one thing I was extremely impressed with, and I think a lot of people were, is how crazy good the singles were. I've heard nothing but positive reviews, and obviously, like I said, I've heard the album, so I know it continues from there. But were you kind of surprised by the outcry of like how positive everything has been so far?
um, it's always awesome to see people as excited about new material as you are.
Hmm.
So in one sense, we were just happily surprised just to see people receiving it in the way that we feel about it. But we also really did feel like, you know, I felt like a lot of things have clicked for me and my songwriting
Hmm.
on this record. And I was just really grateful for that. And I was just hoping that people would feel the same way that I feel about the songs.
Right.
And that's been so cool to see that response. So yeah, totally.
Absolutely. And you had mentioned it before, and I think we might have talked about this last time. But for the new audience, there might be a little overlap to make sure that people, know everything they can about you. So you mentioned writing and doing songwriting for Nick as well. So are you writing all the lyrics? Are you writing all the songs, and then it spreads out to the rest of the band?
Yeah. So um, anytime I've written a song, I write every piece of like every part of the band, every piece of the song, because that's how I hear it in my head. And now all that means is, hey, this is my take on all of these elements.
Hmm.
Let's now start picking apart them individually and see how we can improve upon them.
Ah, okay.
Just because I hear the whole song in my head, and in the past I would like leave parts out just so guys didn't feel like I was stepping on their toes. But like they all would end up asking me like, well, what do you think? And I'm like, all right, so I'll just do it.
Right.
And it's good. There's no egos in the band at all. Everybody's just so cool about it. Abishai, our drummer, is like just a freak of a drummer. He's a
Oh yeah.
great musician. And he I thought at first he would be like kind of offended that I would, write a drum part,
Right.
because just I don't have the skills that he has, but he loves that because he says a lot of times I'll like think of something that's just kind of a lot different than he would think of, and then he just makes it better.
Ah,
And it's kind of goes that way with all the elements. So
yeah,
that's exciting for me to see me kind of hand in my version of something and see it just get, improved.
right. Is it more the reason why you wanted to take more of the reins this time? Was it literally because you had that time alone that you were really able to put that time in where you might not have been able to like bounce those ideas off of people right away?
Um, well, I've always, yeah, since the beginning of the band, I've always written full songs, complete with everything, lyrics, scream patterns, singing,
Sure.
all that stuff. And so that's like just been pretty normal for me to do that. But just as like members have changed, just that dynamic changes and just keeps getting better, and it helps me get better as a songwriter too.
Oh yeah, that totally makes sense. And then also you brought in Joey
Yeah.
as an extra guitarist as well. So how did you know you wanted to bring him in and how has his dynamic worked with the whole band? And then also this writing process?
Yeah, so after our first full length with the label, we our original guitar player Jeremy, he quit
Right.
at the end of 2012, and people were like, are you guys gonna get another guitar player? And like, can I try out? And all that stuff you have to deal with. We dealt with that for a solid 7 years,
Yep.
6 years. And it wasn't that we didn't want to get another guitar player. We just, if somebody was going to join kind of our family and what we do, I'd really wanted them to be able to just bring something totally different to the table, a lot of skill sets. And Joey and I actually, for the past probably almost 3 years now, have been working on a side project together. He
Oh.
was just a fan of Wolves
Hmm.
and reached out to me, and he had started a side or he'd started a like his thing. So basically what Wolves is for me, he started a band in his own right, and he's an audio engineer, producer, incredible guitar player, great songwriter.
Yeah.
And so yeah, after like working together for like 2 years, became really good friends. He's from San Diego. He flew me out there the first time just to like meet him and hang out, and yeah, we just like we clicked. We have very similar working personalities, and are um probably just like stubborn in the best way possible. Like we just like don't want to, like we just don't ever want to quit,
Hmm.
like a dog with a bone. And I just love that about him. And so we had been working on music, and I'd been showing him, the new Wolf stuff, and he was giving me feedback, and it was like super helpful feedback and input. And it was like a month before we were gonna go record the record, and he'd been helping me out so much, and I was like, dude, why, why haven't I asked you to join the band? And he's like, I thought you'd never ask, And so uh, he was stoked, I was stoked, and it was just a great relationship. And from there, that's where we decided to produce the record together ourselves.
That's awesome. Yeah. So not only do you do, pretty much all of the songwriting, but you're also producing too. Did you produce there? Did you produce in San Diego?
So the way the process went is we went to Long Island to track drums at a proper studio with Mike Watts at Voodoo Studios in Long Island.
Oh, sure.
He had a great drum room. He's a phenomenal drum engineer. Um, and so we did all our drum tracks there. And then from there, we flew back to San Diego, where Joey's from, and that's where we did all the guitar tracking and engineering and bass and vocals. And I did a bit of the guitar and vocals back at my place, but the majority of it we did together out in San Diego.
Oh, okay. So let's focus on the vocals for a little bit then. So when you're tracking those and you're working with Nick on that, if you've written things out, do you guys often change lyrics, back and forth depending on, what's going to fit with the appropriate melody and whatnot?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, well, and that's the cool thing, is just having kind of like a think tank of guys, working through all that stuff. And actually, I didn't give you a physical copy,
Right.
but Tim from As Lay Dying actually did some vocal production with Nick. He actually tracked all of Nick's vocals.
Oh wow. Okay.
He's a friend of mine and Joey's,
Hmm.
and he had a studio there, and he's like, dude, I would love to help you guys out and track the vocals. And so for lack of a better term, he essentially produced the majority of Nick's vocals,
Ah.
which was really cool and really great to have somebody that does just that.
Right. Right.
I'm just kind of like a wannabe in that realm. I'm not a front man of a band like Nick or like Tim, and so it was cool to have somebody who had a mind for that. And Tim's also a great producer, great engineer and songwriter, and so it was just kind of like a no-brainer
Sure.
when we went out to San Diego to kind of divide and conquer
Right.
on that stuff.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. So I gotta focus on something real quick. So you don't consider yourself a front man?
I'm a side man. Maybe other people do, but stage left.
There you go, stage left. No, I like that. It reminds me of what I think of when I think of Wolves, where one of the things you guys do so well and so differently than a lot of bands in the scene is you would definitely, in a lot of other bands, call the screamer the front man, because that dynamic is normally, hey, you've got this front man who's going to scream most of the time, and then you're going to come into a chorus with someone who sings very, very high, and then you're going to go back to the screamer, and it's kind of cookie cutter, even though it sounds good sometimes.
Sure.
But you guys do it so differently, where it seems like you have no playbook, you have no format. So it's just whatever you feel like doing. You're going back and forth, like at least your co-lead vocals, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now, was that a dynamic that you ever were worried about changing or wanted to change at any point?
I think there's some there's probably like some temptation, just because you see like that's the quote unquote model that quote unquote works.
Right.
But we've been given a comparison between a band that I absolutely love, and it's flattering anytime somebody says that we remind them of Alexis on Fire.
Ah, yes. Yes.
Because I love that band, and I love their dynamic. And the thing that's so important about that band is because there's plenty of songs where like maybe Dallas is like he's doing the majority of the singing. What people don't understand is how important the frontman is for a band like us or like them, because they probably don't realize how involved he is, even though you feel like a melody is carrying a song for the majority of it. Because what people don't realize about Nick is that he sings, he doesn't just scream.
Right.
And as well, that like in a live dynamic, we're thinking about, okay, this is a live show, and we don't want to just do it just stock as it's done in the studio.
Right.
And so all those things we kind of keep in mind when we're writing songs. And so format wise, like we just want to make the best song we can. And if that means that it's like 10% me and 90% Nick, then we'll do it. Like if that's what makes that song the best, then that's what we'll do.
Right.
And vice versa. And that's what's so awesome about Nick too, is that he doesn't have an ego as like, I'm the front man. How come there's a ballad, at the end of the record that I don't do anything on,
Very true. And if I'm not mistaken too, Nick also, it seemed like, went a little bit out of maybe not his comfort zone, but a little something different than what I've heard with Wolves in the past. That spoken word into screaming and that spoken word into clean vocals. It seemed like he was doing that for at least a couple of the tracks.
Yep.
Did you guys talk about that? Was that something you really wanted to shoot for?
Yeah, just I've always wanted to push Nick more and more, to be more than what people would label him as. It's just, oh, he screams.
Right.
Because I know what he's capable of. And we're big fans of, like Touche and Me Without You. And I just feel like there's such a cool emotive element to bands like that. And that's what's cool about Me Without You, is that their singer he'll do like a spoken wordy type thing, or he'll just sing, or he'll scream.
Right.
And and he's not doing that because he's like, oh, this would be cool to fit into this scene. He's doing that because it fits for this song.
Right.
And that's what best communicates that song. And so that's what we wanted. We want Nick more and more to kind of see himself in that way of, your voice is an instrument. You don't just have one thing you can do. there's many facets to it, and we've pushed him hard, and he's risen to the challenge each time. So I can't wait to see what he's capable of on the next record. So
For sure. Now, is that something that when you guys, so you mentioned obviously you're doing a lot of the songwriting, but is that something that he brings up with you when you guys have conversations? Like, do you tell him, hey, it might sound good if you do this? Or is Nick coming and saying, hey, I've been really trying to work on something. What about this here?
So, like, after every record, like, Nick and I always have, like, these, like, exit conversations after a record's done where it's like, "Dude, what you did was awesome. I think you can do more," you
Ah,
know?
uh-huh.
Because for me individually, like, I just am always I'm very competitive with myself and always trying to push myself, and I wanna be better after every record, because recording is a very vulnerable experience, and you see a lot of your flaws and things you're not as strong at, and I see that and I'm like, "Man, I just wanna be better at this," or, "I wanna be able to push myself so that I can make my voice sound like this or do that." And, and I wanna do that for Nick too, because I see he doesn't always see, like, the potential that he has, just because of his personality, and, over the years, that's just changed where his eyes kind of opened up to like he worked so hard to become a great screamer. I'm like, dude, you got from point A to point B. That's just one facet of your voice. Like, let's explore the rest. And so that's usually what happens. So like after Types and Shadows, I was like, dude, it was really cool. You did this. You started like singing on this record for the first time, which was awesome.
Right.
You're gonna sing more next record. And we were gonna add more elements so that people just don't know what to expect from you, essentially, in a good way, hopefully.
Right, right. No, I think I didn't say this before, but Eclipse might be my favorite Wolves album.
That's awesome. It's mine.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, I guess, well, let me ask you this question. So before we'll go back to what I was saying in a second, but for you, is every album you make, does that end up being your favorite?
Yeah, in some senses. But yeah, it's hard to say because I feel like if you probably went back and listened to an interview from 3 years ago, I would be saying the same thing about the record before.
Right, right.
But I think truly this time around, I do believe that as an artist, there's always like hangups you have about like when you're creating songs and things that you say that you shouldn't do, or these are the only things you can do. And I think after the last three records going into this one, I really just said like, who cares? Like, I'm the only one who cares about these things, and why do I care? There's no reason. It's like sometimes I'll feel like I'm creating something hoping that it'll make me feel like, oh, it's as good as this band that I like or as good as that band. And I just realized that I've never made myself happy
Oh,
doing that. Um, it's cool, and I'm like, oh, these are cool songs, but there is an element of like freedom that I didn't have that I think I had on this record, which was a lot more fun.
I see. So where do you think that freedom came from? Where do you think that click point was?
It started in the fact that I wrote a song that I remember thinking, "Oh, this can't yeah, this isn't a Wolves at the Gate song." And I just remember going, "Why?" You know? And it's 'cause it felt too much like Alexis on Fire, and I was like to me, and I was like, "And we're not that band, you know? We can't be," and I was like, "Why does it matter?" And I'm like, "The song's good, like, just go for it." And I
Yeah.
just remember thinking it was so stupid because I showed it to Abishai, and I was like, "Yeah, it's this cool song," I was like, "Maybe I'll make a side project out of, like, songs like this," and he's just like, "Or it just could be our song because it's rad."
Yeah.
And, it was literally just like, "Oh, um, totally. Alright, let's do it."
So then, really, one of the questions I was going to ask was, what were you most excited for people to hear from you on this album? But is it really just that freedom that you're allowing yourself to explore the sounds that you guys can be?
Yeah, definitely, conceptually, yeah, the kinda like that freedom. But, if I have to say, like, if there was a song I was most excited for people to hear, A Voice in the Violence,
Ah, sure.
because I felt like that when I finished that song, I just remember thinking, man, this is what I want to keep doing.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the kind of song that if I showed it to myself, back when I first started writing music, I'd be just as excited about it.
Yeah.
And I would be like, oh my goodness, like, whoa, you wrote that? That's so cool.
Right.
That's what it felt like. I couldn't believe that it was something that we came up with,
Oh, it's very cool.
because it just hit a lot of elements of what we want to get out of writing songs and
Mm-hmm.
making art. So maybe it sounds like we think we've created like this amazing thing. We just feel like, wow, we're finally doing what we wanted to do,
Right.
and it feels so good to feel like we're moving in the right direction that way.
Yeah. I think I feel the same way, and I think the audience will feel the same way as well. Just like I said, after multiple listens, Eclipse just feels like it's your best work or my favorite. It's hard to say best
Yeah.
because I love Types and Shadows. I love 5v5. Like
Yeah.
I think we talked about this on the first interview. I love all the things you guys have done, but it's just like it gets better and better and better. And a lot of artists don't get to hear that from people. Because
Yeah.
you can start naming them off, the people that are like, oh no, their first album was always the best, and that was it.
Yeah.
But you guys seem to have evolved where it's, like I said, it's just better and better.
Yeah, and I think I know why, you are able to look back at the other records and go, "Oh man, I like those too," because I feel the same way, and I realized that once we were done with Eclipse, the reason why I like our new record as much as I do, but why I can still look at our old records fondly is because I felt like they each captured an element of our band, but it was like too isolated,
Okay.
I feel like Captors was just a little too much like everybody go, go, go all the time. Everybody play everything always.
Sure.
Drums, bass, guitars, always.
Yep.
There was no space for anything, no space to breathe. Vocals are on top of each other. And it was fun and it was energetic and melodic.
Oh yeah.
And that's why a lot of people liked it. Things and bigger guitars. And then Types and Shadows, kind of was like the darker, ominous sort of like, very post whatever,
Sure.
post something, anything I'd say is wrong. So I'm just going to say post whatever. And maybe it's pre something and maybe it's present. I have no idea. But what I realized is that with these new songs was just taking all those elements and putting them together in a song,
Mhm.
and letting them speak in places that they need to speak and not just all one thing. And I think that's when we're at our best. And so that's what how I'm hoping to move forward in the future is acknowledge all those things that we like and just try and harness them properly.
No, that was really well said. Absolutely. And I think I want to jump on something where you're mentioning being able to put all of the styles together and hearing what you want to hear. Maybe you're not exactly this genre or another. And I think we also talked about this the last time we spoke, but I think I mentioned I am not a religious person whatsoever. But
Right.
when I listen to tracks like Eclipse, like the title track, when I listen to A Voice in the Violence, response and blessing and a curse, or blessings and curses. Yeah, blessings
Mhm.
and curses. When I read those lyrics, they shout religion to me.
Mhm.
But what I like about Wolves at the Gate is people who are not religious can also listen to the music and make their own interpretation of it as well. From your perspective, you can see something different. And I know you guys have a message that you're putting out there, but I also like the ability to read into things the way that I connect to them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I lost part of what you said because it froze.
Oh,
But
okay.
I think I know where you're going.
Yeah.
But I think the reason why is that one, I believe the things, what I believe in, I believe to be true.
Yeah.
And I think that there are undoubtedly universal truths that are in a lot of these songs that maybe you may not understand the, the whole like faith system that I believe, but I think there are objective truths within that faith system that many people will look at and see to be objectively true.
Sure.
And so maybe that's how that works out for you. And if that is, then that's cool, because part of what we really care about too is that um we know that not everybody's gonna like read the lyrics of one of our songs and then completely buy into what we believe.
Right.
Um, you know, but what I do know is that like so much of this life is a journey, and sometimes if you can get little bits of truth here and there, maybe it helps you come to a greater understanding of what you know, yeah, what to believe about life and what to believe about God. And if we can do anything to help people on that journey, that would be like massively like exciting for us. Um, because we understand that like there's not a timeline, there's not a time frame. We're not trying to put a gun to people's head and make them, turn into, are like proselytes of ours.
Right.
We would rather people through the songs and through just objective truth organically come to understand some of these things. And maybe it's in a small way and maybe it's in a big way, but regardless, that's kind of the beauty of art, is that it can be kind of this like delivery system for things to make you think.
Yep.
And that's what I love about music. Even when it's a message that I may not agree with, it's making me think, why do I believe what I believe, and consider what this person's saying, and yeah, kind of just analyze statements and beliefs forensically,
Right.
not just, like a fearful religious person who doesn't really want to it doesn't want to hear anything,
Right.
you
Right.
know, because really what that means is that they're not confident in what they believe. They just don't even want to deal with anything. For me, like I love interacting with that kind of stuff, because I want what I believe to be tested, because I want to be sure.
Sure.
And yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Do you feel that way about like things like politics as well?
Maybe just elaborate that question a little
Oh,
bit,
sure.
just so I understand it.
Just in the point where, in order to, kind of almost prove that you're right, that you don't cut out anyone else that has a differing opinion than you do.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's what's so messed up about our culture, is that, people will listen to a 30-minute podcast that's like completely about their side of the story and what they believe, but they won't take 30 seconds to hear maybe somebody else's opinion.
Right.
Honestly, how can you even logically have a conversation with somebody if you don't hear them out?
Exactly.
And what happens is so often you just cut each other off and you're not getting the whole picture and you get frustrated, and then two parties just go, that guy's a jerk, that guy's a jerk, and it's over. Nothing's been accomplished.
Right.
For me, I'd much rather hear people out and hear what those opinions are. And because if I'm going to say I oppose you, I want to be sure why I oppose somebody's opinion
Right.
or perspective, so that when I communicate it to them, I'm not just some guy just beating them over the head with my set of facts that I have, loaded in the hopper and ready to go.
Yep.
But an actual real interaction that maybe might make them think and make me think too, because that's how all of my worldviews have changed, is by listening.
Mm-hmm.
And hearing somebody out and going, wow, the way I thought about X, Y, or Z is incomplete, because I've just run to these stock things all the time and have not actually logically thought through.
Right.
So completely and totally agree.
Yeah. And it seems, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it does seem like you might have had at least one or two songs that could have been politically driven or politically based.
Yeah. And they are, I never honestly thought that I would kind of be the guy to talk about those sorts of things, but
Sure.
just because it's just so inherently divisive. But thankfully with these songs, we're we're not taking a side
Right.
of the red or the blues. We're actually trying to stand in the middle and go, hey, both of these systems are corrupt and flawed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not actually, just running to a party is not going to produce any of the change that you want to see.
Right.
Because it's just tribalism, in I think I can't remember what track it is. That's a good sign. Oh, in History.
Yes, History. That's the one.
Yeah, just
Yep.
talking about how, like, the colors we choose make us pawns in the game.
Right.
Because that's really what it is. It's like, do you really think at the end of the day, by and large, a certain political party wants you affiliated with them because they really care about your rights, or because they just want to use you so that they can maintain power.
Exactly.
And that's then where the song "Evil Are the King" stems off of,
Right.
because it starts by saying we just don't care.
Right.
You know, we all know at the end of the day what's right, but the problem is that we are just so apathetic
Hmm.
towards those things, because jumping back to history, we're just fighting for our own lives. You're
Yeah.
not actually caring about, claim to care for other people, but so much of it is just political moves
Right.
and political ideology, and not actually caring for people. And that is something that I do truly love about the message of Christ and of Christianity, is that Jesus wasn't a political leader. He definitely took stances on things that were true and things that could fall on either side of the fence in certain things, but that's not what he came to do. He didn't come to be a ruler, because that wasn't our great problem that we needed another king. There were many kings and they all sucked and they were terrible and they failed and
Right.
ruined nations,
Yep. Hmm.
because that's what the song's about. It doesn't matter, okay, you think Trump's a terrible president. I don't think you would be much better, because if any of us had that sort of power, we might be very similar. It's hard to say,
Sure.
it's like saying, well, man, if I had $2 million, I'd give money away. It's like, I don't know. You have $20 and you won't give $2 away.
Right.
What's to say if you had 2 million that you'd give 20 grand away?
True.
So that's just me being skeptical and maybe sarcastic. I
Little
don't know.
jaded. Yeah. Yeah. No. No. No, I totally get it. That's why I like having conversations with free thinkers and open thinkers like yourself. I mean, I've had Garrett Russell on a couple times as well. He loves arguing. Like, I like the ability to talk to someone who can look at both sides and
Hmm.
actually have a conversation without completely cutting off.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's always very important. And I mean, I see it in the music, the way you're able to navigate through that. And I think it's a great way to do it. And yeah, I really enjoyed that. I noticed it a lot more. I didn't notice it as much in Types and Shadows. So it seemed like it was kind of a newer direction here. And it's not all
Yeah.
encompassing for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you just think about, so Types and Shadows came out in 2016.
Right,
And so the writing of that record happened between 2014 and 2015.
right,
And now if you look, then if you think about the 3 years leading up to, the release in 2019, so a lot's changed. And um, they were just things that I think about and thought about a lot. And I just kind of hate that. I just hate the tribalism I see. And I also hate the fact that people just so quickly associate Christians with certain political views,
exactly.
or certain like TV stations,
Hmm.
and it's not accurate, and that's kind of why I wanted to write those songs, is just to kind of throw a wrench in the works and go, maybe not all of us, I didn't want to speak for others, but if I am at all representing, this faith system, I would want that to be represented, because I think that's actually in keeping with, Jesus's teaching. So
Let's skew back a little bit. We've been talking about different parts of the album with, religion and politics and everything. It sounds like there's a lot of different topics covered. So would you call this a concept album based on what you're talking about?
yeah, it was kind of cool how I'm never like, you talked about Garrett. I'm not the guy that's like has the concept before the album.
Ah, okay.
I'm just gonna say I'm not as smart as he is. But yeah, I love him to death.
He's a great guy.
But
Yeah.
how it always happens for me is I see the concept afterwards,
Okay.
and I've seen throughout all of our records, there's just an impossibility of me just kind of just writing things at random. There's always a theme behind it, and and I see where I am in life, and that's why so many of these songs, when I titled the song Eclipse,
Hmm.
I was like, man, that's perfect. That's actually perfect for what this whole record is,
Yeah.
And it was like kind of relieving for me, because so often, and that's how it always is when I write a record, I just feel like, am I just like aimlessly writing songs and, like lyrically? Um, but I just have this like massive, note thing on my app on my phone that just has, I just, anytime I have a thought and things that I've just been thinking through or mulling over, I just write and write and write. And that's what that's what all my notes were about, and they were all kind of in that same vein and that same theme of an eclipse,
Yeah.
the light being obscured by the darkness and having to believe that the light's still there. It's because we've seen solar eclipses before, we know that the moon is going to pass eventually, but in life it doesn't always seem like that. And that's where a lot of these songs came from, just personal expressions of that, social expressions of that, like in our culture.
Right.
And then also just outsider looking in, like on guys in the band and their lives and seeing similar themes in that. So yeah.
Sure. And not only did you tie that in all together, with the music itself, but also with the 4 singles that you put out before Eclipse actually comes out, all the artwork
Mhm.
is tied in as well, where there's different objects obscuring the eclipse as well, which I really enjoyed. Where do you guys come up with that concept?
So Ryan Clark is the guy that did all the album art,
Hmm.
and he's a super talented guy. Always honored to work with him. And I basically just sent him a ton of like different pictures of eclipses that
Hmm.
artists have drawn,
Ah,
basically artists' interpretations of eclipses, and just so he can get a feel for what I was looking for. And it was super cool is when he sent us his basically his mock-up for the album art. He even said, he's like, for each single I want to do a different thing and a different site of an eclipse, essentially, in a different scenery.
mhm.
And I just thought it was so cool. And when he sent it, because he knew what the singles were going to be,
Right.
I just feel like each one captured what the songs were and what they were about, visually, which is so exciting for me, because it just shows, one, he listened to the tracks and read the lyrics and put that investment in. So it's super rad.
So, will there be an image for all 13 tracks
No, just yeah, there wouldn't be enough room in the
in
the
the booklet?
booklet.
Yeah.
I would have gladly taken 13. That would have been really cool, but there wasn't enough room. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, I mentioned Garrett Russell, and you guys are a member as well of the Solid State family. And
Hmm.
I realized when I was looking back for Scene Daddy interviews, we started with Garrett Russell. We've had Death Therapy, we had Oh Sleeper, and now we have yourselves. And that's not even including bands I've had on the previous show, like The Ongoing Concept and Fit for a King.
Hmm.
You guys have such a great family there of artists. Is that the style of music that you listen to? Do you listen to mostly solid state bands? Do you have other bands that you like to pay attention to as well?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's lots of other bands. That's not to say anything about the bands that we're on the label with. The cool thing about that is, like, we are genuinely like buddies.
Hmm.
I've known the guys in Silent Planet long before they were signed, and they opened up one of the first. They were a local opener at one of the first like tours we ever did
Oh,
when we
wow.
were out on the West Coast,
Yeah.
and I just remember going like, "So this doesn't feel like a local band. This is cool." I'm like, these guys got their stuff together. So we've been friends for a long time. Same thing with guys in Fit. Like, we both got signed around the same time.
Hmm.
But yeah, there's so many other artists, I mean, that we're into as a band, and also just the guys individually. It's all
Oh, yeah.
very, very different. I'd say we have a core like niche of music that we're into.
Hmm.
That's what's cool is, I just have a Spotify playlist that I've shared with the guys that I'll just throw stuff in there, and I just tell them, hey, anytime you hear anything that you just think is rad, I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's, somebody like breathing into a microphone. I don't care what style of music it is. Send
Sure.
it. Yeah. So, yeah, we all enjoy those bands, but like, yeah, our musical tastes are pretty broad.
Yeah, and that's normally a good thing for sure. I do want to ask, because it was such a big deal, did you listen to the new Oh Sleeper?
Oh yeah, I've heard the new singles. I haven't sat down and listened to the full album yet. But those guys, they're so rad.
Yeah,
They took us out on one of our first tours as well, and
right.
I'd always been I was a fan of their band, and they kind of treat us like little brothers, which is great. Like that's cool.
Yeah,
Micah and Shane are they're good dudes. And I was so glad to see them back playing music again and creating music again,
yeah.
even more so. And they're just back with a vengeance. So, I mean, I didn't really expect anything different, you
Right,
know.
right.
I knew they're going to come back and they're going to have all the elements of their band that makes them so good, you know.
Very true. Well, I wanted to hit on some stuff because obviously we talked a ton about music, talked a little bit about your family life. There was something that I don't think I brought up last time. So I had read that you were at one time an assistant men's soccer coach. Is that true?
Yeah, I coached two different high school teams.
Oh, wow. Okay. Now, do you just not have enough time now with the kids and, touring and music and everything to do that anymore?
Yeah, I wish. I loved doing it. I love that age too. Because that's you remember when you were in high school, you're just a punk, and it's so cool to see, them come in as, freshman punks and hopefully leave resembling something of a man,
Sure. Sure.
not a child. And I love the game.
Yeah.
I played soccer in college,
Mhm.
and I still play like as much as I can. So yeah, it's super cool. But I do miss coaching. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Well, I mean, what position do you play? Because I'm huge into soccer as well.
Oh man, that's crazy. We didn't talk about this.
I know. That's what I was thinking. I
Yeah.
was like,
So yeah, I played forward in college.
oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Now, did you start with that or did you work your way up?
I played like in the midfield in high school.
Hmm.
And I'd never played forward. And I remember when I came to the school, and beginning of preseason, sometimes a lot of times, like, college coaches will actually take defenders and make them attackers, and attackers make them defenders,
Yep.
because they may have been great attackers in high school,
Hmm.
but they're not going to be great attackers in college game, which is very different.
Right.
And that was the case for me. He threw me in during one of our preseason matches, just like before. Yeah, it was just competition
Yeah.
against our own team,
Right.
and I did really well, and I was pumped because when you play defense, all you want to do is just go up. I played defensive midfield.
Right.
You always feel like you have a leash,
Sure.
that's like just past midfield.
Yep. That's
You
it.
can't go any further. But they let me loose, and it worked out well, and that ended up being, where I thrived.
Very cool. Do you have any favorite teams? Do you still follow any professional teams?
Oh yeah. So I've been a big fan of Arsenal for a long time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I saw.
Yeah, you
That's a
see.
Liverpool jersey, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. It's okay. Look, you guys are like our little brothers. We don't, we're not worried about you. It's okay.
There's nothing new to me. I'm also a Knicks fan, and they're just terrible.
Oh, the New York Knicks?
The New York Knicks,
Oh
yeah.
my good. Wow.
So,
Wait, how did that happen?
well, I'm from New Jersey.
Oh, I thought that's right. You went from New Jersey to Ohio, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
that's where I'm from.
Gotcha.
But yeah, like, I'm not like an Arsenal fan to the point where it's just like, oh, we hate Liverpool or we
Right, right.
hate Tottenham. Like, Arsenal is my team,
Yeah.
and I've been supporting them for a while. But Liverpool is a great team. I do enjoy watching them play. They're good. I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
enjoy when they beat us,
Right, right. Yeah.
but they're yeah. It's been cool watching Liverpool's team get transformed over the years too,
Oh, for sure.
because you guys were like dropping down in the Premier League,
Hmm. Yep.
after kind of being big dogs, and then all of a sudden just clop.
Just clawing back. That's the whole
Yeah,
plan.
man.
Well, they still haven't looked. So I've been a fan since I was 3 years old. They
Wow.
still haven't won a league in my lifetime. So
Which is crazy.
yeah. So that's what I'm hoping for. But winning the Champions League was awesome. And the reason why I have that kit hanging up is because they were just here in Boston the other
Yeah, I
day.
saw that at Fenway.
Yeah, exactly. So I was helping running events for that. So soccer was on my mind. I read finally that you like soccer, and I was like, well, we definitely, Scene Daddy interviews, we can talk music, but we also talk about the person themselves as well. Nothing?
It just did it again. I don't know what is going on.
That is so weird. All right, Steve, so it looks like we're having a little bit of technical difficulty, so we'll probably end things here. We got a lot that we were able to cover anyway, so that's all good. So this is obviously going to come out after Eclipse comes out on Solid State Records. It came out July 26th. That is an album that I hope everyone listens to, because like I said, I really, really love it. I hope everyone checks it out. We'll have links in the description of the episode so people can order it, so they'll see where you're on tour, all that kind of stuff. But until then, what is the best way to support you? And is there anything else upcoming that you wanted to let us know about?
Yeah, just we've got some more music videos that'll be coming out, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Some more shows gonna be happening. Keep your eyes peeled out for that. But best way you could support us, obviously, is I'm sure there's a lot of listeners that maybe have not heard our band, but it is so easy to just give a band a listen these days, and it doesn't really cost you anything.
Right.
So just give us a shot, have a listen, and if you like it, then support it and buy a record, buy some merch. So that helps us out a ton and keep doing what we're doing.
There we go. Well, Steve, man, thank you so much. I've been looking forward to this. It's great to catch up with you after so many years and just to see how well you're doing. And, next time you're still going to have to come up to Boston and play some live shows here for once. And then I'll take you to the bar and we'll watch some soccer.
Sounds good.
There we go, man. Well, thank you so much once again for taking the time out, man. I hope good luck with everything. And I hope everything works out with Eclipse.
Thanks, man.
You've been listening to Scene Daddy Interviews.
Thank you all for listening to Scene Daddy Interviews. Make sure you support the artists we featured by checking out the summary of the episode. Also, for all your scene news, reviews, and memes, make sure to follow Scene Daddy and Ian Hates on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget to subscribe and rate Scene Daddy Interviews on your favorite podcast listening app for more great artist interviews in the future. Stay scene.